Welcome to another episode of Inside Out, the podcast with Kea Boya. It is a podcast that is dedicated to exploring holistic self care and personal growth from the inside out. I am your host, Kea Boya, and we're back after 2 years of me not putting out any content on my podcast. We are back. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm so excited. But I'm also nervous. I had such a difficult time coming back and sitting down, having a conversation, being vulnerable again. But I've learned and grown so much in the past 2 years that it just felt like it is the right time for me to come back on this platform. And for starters, we're going to be chatting a bit about the need for community that is outgrowing hyper independence. It's something that I have seen I had been struggling with for a very long time in my life. And I know that there are a lot of people in my life that are struggling with that as well. And I went on social media the other time, and a lot of people were saying that hyper independence is a form of response to traumatic events. And I was like, I'm not sure. So I did a little bit of research on my own. And according to Psychology Today, hyper independence is an extreme form of self reliance where an individual compulsively avoids asking for support from the people in their lives or relying on others. And this happens as a product of parentification. Basically, it means that the roles were reversed from a young age. So maybe you've had to take care of your parent, or because of the passing of your parents, whatever the situation may be, there was a role reversal where you had to move from being a child to being an adult. And for me, I found myself in this situation where my mom was ill and I had to take care of her at the age of 10. It was just the two of us. I'm the only child, and she had nobody else to depend on. I had to make sure that she took her medication. I had to make sure that she was fed. I had to make sure that she was well taken care of. And ultimately, my grandmother was like, you guys have to move back home because there's no way that this child is going to be going through that. And how that impacted me, I just ended up being a very self reliant person, not depending on people, not being good at asking for help when I need it, because I just became so familiar with taking on everything by myself. And that impacted my relationships, of course, where I just felt like people aren't there for me, people don't care for me. And I also had a problem articulating my needs to the people in my life because I just automatically decided in my head that they are not going to be able to meet the needs that I have, because I didn't even try to see if they could meet those needs. And I think the thing that happens, especially in relationships, not just intimate relationships, but in all relationships, what tends to happen is people tend to believe that you are the strong one. People tend to believe that, oh, she's going to be able to handle anything that is thrown at her. Oh, she is not emotional. She is so strong. And even strong people need help. Even strong people need support. Even strong people need to be able to access their vulnerability so that they build healthy and good relationships with the people in their lives. And for me, I had to unlearn hyper independence. It was hard. I have an amazing group of friends that love me, whom I love, and will go to the ends of the world for me. But I just was not in a position to be able to ask for help, to ask for support, because I didn't know how. I think subconsciously it was associated with some form of weakness. And it had a lot of other connotations. It was weakness, it was being too needy, it was, I'm not safe to be vulnerable. And another way in which it impacted me, I had a challenge with articulating my needs to my mom because I always assumed that she won't be able to meet them. And that caused friction in our relationship because I just felt like I couldn't depend on her emotionally when I needed to be vulnerable about certain things that were going on in my life. I couldn't because I just felt like she's just incapable of meeting those needs. And that happens as a consequence again of being parent, like parentification, having to be a parent at an early age in your life. And I had to unlearn this about 2 years ago, where I got into a relationship and I didn't know how to let people be there for me. I didn't know how to open myself up to the fact that people want to be there for me, to support me, and I just always made a plan. I was the girl that always made a plan, that always made sure that I'm fine. And then I moved to Joburg and I got sick. There was a time where I got really sick, and luckily I had a friend at the time who was taking care of me, who was like, dude, come to my place, I will help you. And then I got into a relationship and I had to weigh off that I've got it all under control. And let me tell you, it's so nice to have people be there for you. It's so nice to have people care for you. It's so good to know that I can rely on the people in my life to show up for me when I need them. And that's where I first started learning the importance of unlearning hyper independence. And then ultimately, it grew to my friendships and my relationships. And with my mom as well, I think we also went through our own journey where I went through a very difficult time in my life and she showed up for me. And her showing up for me made me feel like my mom is capable of taking care of me, of providing for my emotional needs. Yes, our parents can provide for our external needs, our, clothes, food, basic needs, but sometimes they don't know how to up for us emotionally. And my mom stepped up. And in her stepping up, it really brought me to a place where I also needed to be the child and trust that my mom knows how to support me. And I'm so grateful that that happened, because to this day we have such an like a close relationship where I'm able to express to her when I'm not okay. She's my go-to person when I'm not fine. I'll just be like, Ma, I woke up feeling sad and I don't know how to navigate these emotions, or I don't know what to do with these emotions. And she will be there to listen and encourage me. And I'm so grateful to God that that is the point that our relationship has come to, because I had allowed myself to be vulnerable. I had allowed myself to learn how to take a seat back, or a backseat when I am not capable of giving more than I am capable of giving in that moment. And the people in my life, because I was so vulnerable and honest with them, were able to show up for me in ways I never imagined that they would. If you, like me, struggle with hyper independence, I really encourage you to learn how to ask for help. And of course, it's not with everyone. It has to start with the people that you trust the most. For me, it was my best friend and my mom and my partner at the time. And ultimately, it just made me feel like people want to be there for me, people want to support me. And you would be shocked how easier life is when you let people in. I now believe that we're not meant to be doing this life thing alone. For a long time, I had been imagining myself living life by myself, because I was just so self reliant and I was like, I don't need anybody. I don't want to bother anybody. But I had to unlearn that and I had to be vulnerable and let people in. And so, if you're a person that struggles with opening up, if you're a person that struggles with vulnerability, if you're a person that just doesn't know how to ask for help and you feel like you have to carry the whole weight of the world on your shoulders, I think start off by reflecting and looking back at how you got here, what in your life brought you to this place, and how is that impacting your current relationships? Is it denying you the opportunity of being vulnerable with the people in your life? Is it denying you the opportunity to build emotionally close relationships with the people in your life? Which is personally what I felt was the impact of me being hyper independent. And I remember a series that I was watching from scratch. It was trending when it came out. And it really made me realize the importance of having a community of people to rely on. So the storyline goes, there is this young lady who goes to Italy because she was pursuing art, and she meets this gentleman who she fell in love with, and ultimately they get married. and they start living together. And they lived quite a short life together until he was diagnosed with cancer. And man, the way her community showed up for her was to me the most incredible thing. How her friends were supporting her, how her sister, her mom, her dad, her stepmom was supporting her. Everybody came through to support her when she needed the support. And I was like, you know what? Life is going to do its thing. Life is going to be lifing. And you really need a group of people to support you. And if you haven't watched it, please check it out. It is such a beautiful lesson on community. But I really encourage you that as you develop a better relationship with yourself and as you become honest with yourself, because I think another thing is that complete self reliance is based upon you not being honest with yourself, or you're honest, but you feel like it doesn't matter. You could be like, oh my gosh, I am so overwhelmed. I don't know how to deal with all these things, but you're not acknowledging it and you're not being honest and you're not seeking help. So learn to be honest with yourself, learn to cultivate a relationship of vulnerability first with yourself and then with the people in your life. And I promise you will feel closer emotionally to the people in your life. You will feel seen. You will feel understood. And I really hope that you develop a relationship with yourself that encourages vulnerability, not only with yourself, but with the people in your life as well. And that is how we're starting off our podcast in the longest time. I'm just going to be focusing for a while on the importance of community, on building a great community around you, whether it be at work, whether it be your friends, whether it be your family, because I really believe that that is one of the biggest lessons that I'm learning in my life. And I hope that if you are a person that has closed off and isn't really opened up to the idea of building a solid community, I hope this changes your mind. And I hope you start cultivating a relationship of vulnerability with yourself and ultimately with the people in your life. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Inside Out with Kea Boya. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this podcast if you're listening to it on Apple or what's the other one, Spotify, or you can simply just share the link on YouTube as well.